Okay, hello Cloud Gurus and welcome to this lecture. This is a lecture on Snowball. So what is a snowball? Well, it's not something that you throw at each other because if you did, you'd severely hurt your friend. So to put this all into context, before there was Snowball, there was a service called Import-Export Disk, and this was means that AWS would allow you to accelerate moving large amounts of data into and out of the AWS cloud using portable storage devices for transport. So basically picture this. You've got a whole bunch of data, let's say it's 500 gigs or a terabyte, and you've only got a small internet connection. Maybe it's maybe it's only 1 megabit per second or something like that. So instead of doing it over the internet, what you could do is send in an external hard disk to Amazon, and then they would basically transfer this data directly onto and off of these storage devices using their high-speed internal network, and you bypass the internet entirely. Now that was great, but the problem was lots of people started using it, and they were sending in all these different types of disks, all different types of external disks, different types of connections, that sort of thing. And it became basically a nightmare to manage. So at reInvent in 2015, Amazon released what's called Snowballs, and there's 3 different types of Snowballs. There's your standard Snowball, there is Snowball Edge, which was announced at reInvent in 2016, and then there's the Snowmobile, which was announced at reInvent 2016 as well, and I'll go through what each one is. So let's start with the Snowball, and what does a Snowball look like? Well, this is a Snowball. It's these bad boys. That's a Snowball off to the left, which is closed, and this is a Snowball that is open. So they're quite big, bigger than a briefcase, quite heavy. I have actually ordered one, and I was hoping I ordered it a few weeks ago. It still hasn't arrived. I was hoping to have it for this lecture, but I will record this lecture when it arrives. So what is a Snowball? Basically, it's petabyte scale data transport solutions that uses those basically secure appliances, and it helps you transfer large amounts of data into and out of AWS. Now, basically what Snowball is designed to do is streamline bringing data into AWS and bypassing the internet. So instead of managing all these third-party external disks, Amazon just give you an appliance, you load data into the appliance, and then send it into Amazon, and then they then export that data from that appliance into S3. So transferring data with Snowball is simple, fast, secure, and it can be as little as 1/5 the cost of using high-speed internet. Right now there's 80 terabytes Snowballs available in all regions, and you can get 50 terabyte Snowballs in the US. Don't worry, you don't need to know the size of a Snowball going into the exam. Amazon never do those sorts of tests or those sorts of exam questions, so they'll never ask you how many regions are available, how many multi-AZs are available in a particular region, or how big a Snowball is. It's more important to understand what the concepts are. So Snowballs use multiple layers of security. They're designed to protect your data using tamper-resistant enclosures. You get 256 AES encryption on them, and they have an industry-standard trusted platform module, which is designed to both ensure security and full chain of custody of your data. And they actually come with Kindles, basically, and you can track where your Snowball is at any given time. And once the data transfer job has been processed and verified, AWS performs a software erasure of the Snowball appliance, so you will not be able, or future customers will not be able to recover the data, your deleted data from that appliance. So let's move on to what a Snowball Edge is. And Snowball Edge looks just like a ordinary Snowball, but the difference is that they contain 100 terabytes worth of data, and they come with onboard storage and compute capacity. So the first one, a Snowball, is just onboard storage. With Snowball Edge, it has compute capabilities as well. And basically, Snowball Edge is more or less a little AWS data center that you can bring on premise. So you can use Snowball Edge to move large amounts of data in and out of AWS, but you can also run Lambda functions from them. And what Snowball Edge allows you to do is bring compute capacity to places where you otherwise would not normally be able to do it. So for example, airline manufacturers, aircraft engine manufacturers, can deploy Snowball edges onto airplanes and collect data around how that aircraft engine is running. And then when the airplane lands, you can take the Snowball edge out, ship it back to the AWS data center, and you've got not just your S3 storage, but you've got your Lambda functions that's collected the data as well and stored it in S3. And we'll talk a little bit more about what Lambda is later on in the course, in the EC2 section of the course. But just think of Snowball Edge as an AWS data center in a box. It's not just storage capacity, it's compute capacity as well. So moving on to the final one, which is Snowmobile. Now this was announced at reInvent 2016 in the most dramatic way possible. So Snowmobile is one of these bad boys. It's a massive sea container on the back of a huge truck, and this is for petabyte or even exabyte levels of data. So for those of you that don't know, obviously you have gigabytes of data. 1024 gigabytes is essentially a terabyte. Terabyte goes into petabyte, and petabyte goes into exabytes. And AWS have been finding now that companies are saying, we have exabytes worth of data. We'd like to move it into AWS, but over a 10 megabits per second line, that's going to take us 25 years. So using an AWS Snowmobile, you can actually do that in less than 6 months. So Snowmobile has currently 100 petabytes worth of capacity, and you can order 10 of these and bring in an exabyte, and it would roughly take you about 6 months according to the reInvent presentation. So AWS Snowmobile is an exabyte scale data transfer service. Is used to move extremely large amounts of data into AWS. You can do 100 petabytes per Snowmobile. A 45-foot long ruggedized shipping container pulled by a semi-trailer truck is used to transport it. And then Snowmobiles make it easy to move massive volumes of data into the cloud, including video libraries, image repositories, or even a complete data center migration. So you can imagine, all your traditional colo data center providers are starting to panic about this. Transferring data with Snowmobile is obviously going to be secure, fast, and cost-effective. Costs are price on application, by the way. So Snowmobile is really the extreme. You'd only ever see this in your Fortune 500 companies, I would assume. It's basically taking the idea of Snowball to the furthest limits. So what do you need to know for your exam? Well, you have to understand what a Snowball is. You have to understand the legacy application, so what used to happen. So it was called import-export before it was called Snowball. And import-export was where you sent in your own disks. So you might get a scenario question, and Snowball's not an option, but import-export might be an option. Sometimes the exams can be a little bit out of date. So just understand what import-export is from a historical perspective. Import-export is still available, by the way, but it's if you go into the AWS console, there's no service description for it there. If you want to basically import data into AWS, they just force you down the Snowball route. I don't blame them. It must have been a total nightmare managing all those different disks that are being sent in from all around the world. And then just understand what a Snowball can do. So you can import to S3 and you can export from S3. If you're using Glacier, you're going to have to basically do a restore from Glacier to S3, and then you're going to have to move it out from S3 onto your Snowball appliance. So that's it for this lecture, guys. It is theoretical. Hopefully I will be able to update this in a couple of weeks with a brand new Snowball Edge. By the way, Snowball edges can be clustered as well. I wouldn't expect Snowball edges to be in the exam at all at this stage. They're still brand new, but hopefully we will have an updated video in the next couple of weeks with the Snowball edge on my desk. If you have any questions, please let me know. If not, feel free to move on to the next lecture. Thank you.